How we doing, Trips? How are we? That's episode number 6. Welcome, every Mind Matters. Myself, Mikey Doak, the host, and joined by the first family guest, should I say. So I have my favourite sister on, so I do. My only one,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Mum or Dad's got something to say, if not.
I know. So thanks very much for coming on, Erin. Erin's been down in London for 9 months now.
But 9 months, almost a year.
Yeah, so she's living life down there. So how's things down there anyway? All good?
They're good, but it's raining as much as it would have been back home. So weather's a bit crap. But apart from that, all good. And we're going to the pub later. So
No, that's a main thing, of course.
yeah.
Got to be careful with that. But thanks very much for coming on. So just basically, just straight into it, how are things growing up? I know obviously you had to put up with myself and Declan, but
I think Declan was a real challenge, but no. Things were pretty much normal apart from when Dad took not too well. So that was something that was a bit hard to grow up with, like Mum and Dad constantly being away, Dad being in hospital appointments, stuff like that. But I'd say we had a pretty as normal childhood as Mum and Dad could have made before they split up when I was 14. But it was relatively normal before that. I'm the middle child, there's Declan, me, you. So I was constantly telling you what to do, never listening to Declan, but it was pretty much childhood, right?
No, as you say, it was quite difficult, but we still got to do the things that like a lot.
Still went to the football when Dad was well enough to take us. Still went to school, went on little family trips. We still did all that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's the main thing. We just had all good moral support from our family members as well, from sides, which we're forever grateful for. So, just basically how I know you also things were they were. It was good growing up, but I know it was a bit tough. But like, how did you deal with that? Like, did it like have an impact on you? Like, do you feel as if at that time, or was it a bit later on in life?
I mean, I was diagnosed with anxiety when I was 15, and I've been on anti-anxiety medication since. So that's been like 10 years almost.
Yeah.
No, 10. Yep, 10 years and 25. I keep forgetting. But so that's been 10 full years on these. But it wasn't until, I mean, I don't know if it's common knowledge, but the last few months I've been in and out of like therapy sessions. And it wasn't until we were able to properly dive in years later that I've maybe put a connection in with my anxiety started a year after Mum and Dad had split up. Things were a wee bit, things were quite hard for a couple of years after that, especially when I was 15 coming up for 16. You've got all your exams, you're worried about unis, you're worried about, friendships forming, etc. So there was actually a lot going on, which I never realised and didn't maybe give the time of day it needed then, but then I was able to look back like a good few years later and maybe make a connection of a wee bit of a messy family life at the time, as well as the added pressure of what you're going to do with your own life, where you're going to be in a couple of years' time. It's quite a lot for a young person to take. I don't think it helped.
No, definitely, and that was the thing as well. Like for us growing up, like it was quite young when obviously we were both at 6 and 9 when Dad was like basically at death's door.
Yeah,
like, it was like it was touch and go, but thankfully it was on the mend. And then a bit later on in life, a few years ago, of course, I get diagnosed with a cancer. And I think like we done well to cope with that at the time, but it's always these things later on in life, like they affect people, and that's why I encourage like for educational sectors and workplaces to get mental health training for them and to teach kids like at a young age. I think personally, in my opinion, I think we should be teaching kids age 6, 7 about impacts of mental health, prime example like bullying and things like that. Just that
100%.
Because mental health problems start long before you know it. I think a lot of people could agree with that. Of course, but
I definitely think you're right.
And also just touching on the subject, or you were diagnosed just 10 years ago. Was it, who was the first person you opened up to about it? Like, was it your
Yeah.
friends at the time, or did you just, was it mum and dad? And
Well, the reason that it wasn't up to me who I actually opened up to first, because it was on the way back from like school, and I remember having the worst horrible feeling like ever. Started to think, like I feel like I'm going to die. I've got chest pains, had really sore throat. It's a really weird way to talk about it, but you do genuinely feel like no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to get out of that horrible feeling. And I didn't know what it was at the time. I was just overtaken by a feeling of something's not right, but I don't know what it is, because no one had ever spoke to me about what a panic attack was, what an anxiety attack was. So it was actually a friend at the time I was walking home with, who her mum was a nurse, and she's noticed a few things. She's like, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "No, actually, like I'm worried if I keep talking to you, I'm going to either faint, I'm going to, like choke to death." Like it's the craziest way to like put it into perspective, but you do genuinely feel like you're having a heart attack and that something's wrong, and that you need to get out of that situation as soon as possible, when all it was walking home from school, which I did every single day anyway. But I felt it was a matter of, like if I don't get out of this and if I don't get home now, something's going to happen to me. I need to be home. I don't want to speak to anyone. I don't want to see anyone. And I remember going home and like when I calmed down a little bit, thinking, "Oh, I think I should maybe tell like dad what's happened," because I was living with like dad. But I thought, no, because that's really weird. How do you tell someone, "I don't know what's wrong with me, but today I thought I was going to die when I was walking back from school"? Like how do you put that into words? You just can't. So I lived with it quietly for a couple of months, and then in the middle of a history class, I think it was a history class, and I was sitting there and I just had to walk out. I was like, "There's something like not right. Like I'm feeling very overwhelmed, very stressed out." But at the time, I did just put it down to these exams. It's all these normal pressures which people have at this age. But when it got unbearable and it was affecting every single day, like my walk to school, so that I wouldn't come across as many people in case I did start having a little panic attack, no one would see me, stuff like that. So when it got to a point of I was having to alter my daily routine to feel normal, I realized that there was something not normal, something wasn't quite right. So I went to the doctors, and they right there and then said, you've got like anxiety, you're definitely having panic attacks. So if anything, it was a relief, because I was thinking there would be something like seriously wrong with me, like, and that might have been why I was feeling just weird and not like myself at all. But then I did tell mum and dad. I told mum and dad a couple of days after that, because I didn't want any secrets, and I kind of didn't feel ashamed anymore. I did before I knew what it was, and thinking, I hate using this word, but I'm mental, like there's something not right. But then when I knew what was, I knew how to explain it, I knew what was happening to me, I could then explain it to other people. And it's not the first thing I tell someone, but if it ever comes up in a conversation and somebody talks about being anxious or whatnot, then I'm in a position where I can be like, well, not to worry, because no matter how you feel, things do actually get better. You can learn to live with this thing, that it doesn't have to stop you from living and doing your own thing. Your life is yours. You shouldn't let this thing overtake it, as hard as it can be sometimes.
no, and that's the thing as well, like Erin. Of course, when that's just the whole stigma, like that's just the whole way with the channel. It's something you shouldn't be ashamed of. But
Yeah.
I think, of course, back in 2000, excuse me, back in 2011, there wasn't the avenues that we've got now. It's only really, I'd say, the last 6-7 years maximum we've started talking about it. I know it's actually, I think it did come to like kind of briefly 10 years ago when Gary Speed, former Wales player, of course, he passed away 10 years ago last week. I think it started getting brought to like a bit then, but then like 2-3 years after it, you had Robin Williams, and then a lot of big stars, they opened up about it. And that's just the whole like purpose. Just, you shouldn't be ashamed of the way you feel, because at the end of the day, you can't control like a lot of the time feelings.
Yeah.
It's just a natural thing. And as you say, like panic attacks, like if you, because like basically a panic attack, it feels just like you're in a dream when you're like trying to talk in your dream, but you can't get the words out. That's what it.
Yeah, like the way I would maybe describe it to someone is, have you ever had those like dreams where you think you know you're asleep and you're falling, but you can't really stop yourself from like falling? You feel like that's happening to you at the time in real life. That's kind of how to sum it up. Your body definitely goes into a fight or flight mode, which can be really scary if you don't know what's happening to you. Like it can be terrifying.
No, it can. That's the main thing. Like that's the thing as well. Like see the whole anxiety and depression. People just think, oh, and just stop worrying. Like that. It's
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I think a lot of us can be quite guilty of saying that to people, but at the end of the day, we don't know how someone else is feeling, and we just have to respect that and just be there to support them. And at the end of the day, it's like life's tough at the end of the day, but so we're all tough as a family, and of course, like all our friends as well that we know, like that they say the same about us. We just try and deal with things as they come. But so after, of course, 2011, it was 2014 February. I know one of our best pals in school at the time passed away. How did like that?
Yeah.
Of course, that would have affected you with the grief, but is that like did that have an impact like mentally on you?
I don't think it did at the time, if I'm honest, though it did have an effect, but I was quite guilty of thinking as close as we were, because we weren't very close until it got to maybe 5th or 6th year. And then, you have more like classes with someone, you see them outside of school a bit more, you walk back from like school together, like that bond, starts and it like grows and it gets stronger and it gets like better. But at the time, I was quite guilty of thinking I don't get to be as upset as people that have always been a close friend, or I should be there for the people that were best friends with her before this happened, rather than just when it was me. But then it wasn't until after that had happened, and then I seen Reagan's mum like out and about, and I noticed like, God, that's actually, it hits you quite hard. You think you used to stop and you used to speak because of that like connection that's no longer there. But I think it truly did hit me when I started university, because we were supposed to go to the same university, do like a similar course. And it wasn't until I was sitting there the first day not knowing anyone, I'm thinking this could have been the chance where, you weren't necessarily close friends, but then when you did get closer, that friendship could have transitioned into a lifelong friendship through uni and all that stuff. You do start to think of what could have been kind of thing. And it wasn't until after it when someone stupidly made a comment about something, that you shouldn't be making any comments about. You shouldn't be judging someone. You don't know what's happened. You don't know why someone's in that position. That I started to get a little bit like, how dare you, started to get really defensive about anyone that I thought could be, like dragging somebody's name through the mud or just making assumptions. So I think it was I think the impact it had on me was slow, and that slow that I didn't really realise it myself until a couple of years later. I started to realise, shit, actually this has had quite like an impact. I'm missing someone. It's okay to miss someone. I didn't have to be the closest person on earth to this person to feel a loss. I was only 17. Like I remember sitting on the football bus and Dad wasn't at the game because he wasn't well, and we got a phone call and all I got told was a friend passed away, and it's like, what the hell? So I felt grief very quickly for the first couple of days, and then thought I just need to be strong for like other people that were our best friends throughout life and throughout school. I'm not allowed to be as upset as them because it was only a recent friendship.
Yeah.
Some people don't realize it's not about the length of time that you know someone, it's about that connection you've got with them. It's about that relationship. That was snatched away at the time. I maybe didn't feel it instantly, but I certainly felt it a couple of years later, thinking, my friend should be here to be going through the same milestones as we are. She should be getting excited about, we're just finishing up uni, we're going in, are we going to go into masters, are we going to go in and try and find a new job? Like, the stuff that you start getting excited about and you realise that was taken away from someone's not easy to deal with. It still does make me quite sad, but
definitely. And I know it was her birthday the other day as well.
yeah.
Of course, my heart. I know Claire McCall, I can call her now, because still used to call her Mrs. McCall. And Ali and the kids, my heart goes out to Megan's mum as well, the whole family, and just anything they need at all, they can easily talk to ourselves at all, and I just appreciate the support from them as well. Of course, since I've started the channel, it's been great, especially from Claire and Ali, and they've just been fantastic. And of course, Regan's mum as well. But as I say, just like, so the aftermath of that, you've just left school, you've started uni, you found uni okay at first, but then you've had a wee change. You've not enjoyed what you wanted to do at school, and you've changed in your mindset. Was that due to maybe the impact of not having Regan there? Do you think your life would have been if, of course, if you're still here, you would have ended up being an English teacher? I know Mr. Adam will be very disappointed in you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Gary.
I don't think it was necessarily because of what had happened, but I think when that does happen to someone so young that you do lose someone who's the same age as you, who you're used to seeing every single day, you start to realise like life is too short. Like you can't just do something because people are expecting you to do it and you're expecting it of yourself. But I mean, I went into university wanting to be an English teacher. That very quickly changed as like, actually, I don't want to do this. I started loving the law and the economic side of things. So I got a degree in that. Decided at the start of this year, actually, that's not what I want to do. I want to help people, like I actually actively want to help people in a way that I've always felt quite drawn to. I think I made the wrong decision going down the English route and the history, route. It really should have been nursing from like day one. Like I've only recently admitted that to like people, but at the height of the pandemic, I'm going, I should be in there working as a nurse because I shouldn't have done what, so it was finally that kick. But I do think having it in the back of your head that you literally don't know what is going to happen. So you need to do what's going to make you happy, regardless of what some people think, regardless of how much anxiety it might give you. Because for a few months I was going, I don't think I can change this because I've already told so many people I'm doing law, I'm halfway. I mean, I'm qualified as a lawyer if I wanted to be, but I don't want to do it. It's not to help anyone the way I want to. And one way that I deal with my anxieties and like struggling is by helping other people. So that's been a big thing for me as it's not enough anymore to do the job or to just go down a path that people expect of me anymore. And that should be the case of everyone. You should be doing what makes you happy, regardless of how much anxiety it might give you. It is going to be worth it.
No, so, I totally agree. And that's the thing, like, excuse me, I think that's the pressure with younger people now. I feel as if there's just pressure on them to achieve too much early on in life. And I just think that's what we have to stop putting too much pressure on young adults that are at school or maybe at university, because later on in life it could have a detrimental effect on their mental well-being. And as I say, like, of course, you do medical, like you're involved in the medical side of things now.
Yeah, I started a new job as a biopharmaceutical research assistant for a cancer research company. So with that this time last year, when I was halfway through to getting my investment banking degree, I'd go, what? Surely not.
Oh, stop talking nonsense.
Yeah.
I know, but no, that's the thing as well. Like, of course, you might be helping people with suffering from mental illness as well in regards to that. Like, because end of the day, their family can be impacted mentally if it's you have patients that are suffering with the cancer, of course. But as I say, that's not too bad, I suppose. Like, you've became an English teacher, a law student, and a medical student, or a space of 6 years. So you've done No, it's not bad,
Yeah.
not bad qualifications to have in a CV, but
Done all right, aye.
so, but you we were talking just before we came on here, like about the condition. It's like it's known as in women, like a mental condition. Could you just go and
Yeah.
elaborate on that a bit more, just for me, please, just for
Yeah.
women that are watching might be impacted by, of course, the same
Yeah.
sort of situation.
Well, yeah, so it was maybe, God, a few years ago I started to realise, and if people are freaked out and squeamish by women's problems, maybe they shouldn't watch further. But I started to realise that when I was like on my period and at that time of the month, that I was going from being a little bit upset and a bit cranky to, you know, like bipolar mood swings. Like 1 minute I'm on top of the world, loving life. 2 seconds later, I'm crying in my bed for days, not wanting to move, not wanting to get out, and complete physical agony. And I kept on going. God, I went to the doctors maybe. It originally happened actually when I was away on a year abroad in New York. And I thought, right, I'll need to make sure that something is wrong with me because I need to pay for this. I need to pay for this consultation. But I went to them, was basically cast aside of, you're just overreacting. These things happen. And then when I came home, I was like, right, okay. But it kept on getting worse. And I thought maybe things would get better when I came back home, because then I'd be surrounded again by family and like friends that I had at home. But it didn't make any difference at all. I was still, and I'll give Dad and Declan their due. I was probably a nightmare to live with, like for that week out of the month, because I was constantly crying, I'd be shouting, but then I'd be crying because I was upset about shouting, like all these things people.
Or just crying because you have to live with Declan. But
there is that too. There is that. And Dad will listen to that as well. But it's like stuff that women have been told for years and years, that's just normal. You just need to put up with this. That's the joy of being a woman. But it wasn't until I went to the doctors again. So I went 5 or 6 times over the space of 5 years, thinking, no, that this is not right. Something needs to be checked. Something needs to be done. And finally, it was a doctor who, to be honest, I've not usually got enough time for, but he took one look at the records and charts and my blood work and went, you've been living with something called premenstrual dysphoric disorder for, as long as you've been menstruating, as long as you've been a woman, you've had this, and it's just been getting worse and worse because it's not been treated. And I'm like, what is premenstrual dysphoric disorder? And I work in the healthcare sector and I had no clue what it was.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, yeah, your own reaction to that is what most people's would be. There's not enough research being done because women have for years just been told, can you suck it up and get on with it? Mm-hmm. Do you know, which when you feel like you're either a nut job or you feel like you're dying is very hard to do on a monthly basis. You can't just get on with it. It got to a point where I'd be dreading knowing it was coming up, because I'm thinking, I need to warn my flatmates, I need to warn my work that I'm just going to be a nightmare, and I didn't know why. Do you know, it wasn't right. So finally they diagnosed me with that when I was just turned 24. That would have been almost a year ago. They put me on antidepressants for that, because it is a form of mental health. It's a form of, it's actually technically a form of bipolarism, because of how quickly your moods can change. It is about the chemical imbalance in your own head, basically. And it's linked to your menstrual cycle, etc., etc. So if there's women that are watching or know anyone that you're going, yeah, I've always been told, it's normal, it's this, it's not. If you're genuinely hating your life and you don't know what to do with yourself for the build up of it coming and when it's with you, that's not normal. It's not normal. So you shouldn't be told to just suck it up. You should be going and you should be asking them to test you for this, because it's actually kind of been life-changing in a way, because I know it's not just me just being a bitch. It's not just me just blaming stuff on my time of the month. It's a genuine medical condition that now I know what I've got, I can see how I can deal with it. But I was living with it for 12 or 13 years without knowing I was, which always gave me anxiety. So they kind of go hand in hand. Yeah,
definitely. And when this video goes up, actually in the bio of the video, the description, I'll put in a link that might help young females.
I can send you the wee WebMD thing.
Yeah. No,
I was told to go on. It has, honestly, it's been life-changing to give that a read.
Yep. So of course, if people that are watching, if and suffering the same kind of thing, in regards to that, into regards to that condition, I will give you the best support that I possibly can. I know I'm a male, but I'll put a link up in the description on the video. And as you say, that can maybe just give you an opportunity to go and seek
Yeah.
the help that you do want at the end of the day. Because you just don't want to be feeling like that. Of
No.
course, 24/7. That's just a condition like PMDE. It can just lead to further, of course, impact on mental health, and then it could
Yeah.
have an impact on who you're living with, and of course,
Can certainly impact relationships, work,
yeah,
everything, you know, because when it's happening to you, when your symptoms are at the worst, you're not who you really are. It's
yeah,
your PMDD, but it's hard to make that, you know, to go, right, that's me and that's my like illness, that's that. Because especially when doctors, like I've got some like friends in the like, healthcare sector too that go, what? And I'm thinking, how do you not even know this either? Because it's not spoke about
yeah.
until it's like brought up. So I was quite lucky I got that appointment with that one person at that time. Otherwise it could have went missed again. So, yeah.
Especially should you feel as if that started when you were living abroad? I know we've not touched on that yet abroad in America, but when you were living abroad, was that when, of course, this situation started? You feel for yourself?
It was definitely when the symptoms got more noticeable anyway. It was, you know, like it was stuff like waking up in the morning when I knew that that's what was happening. When I was waking up in the morning, I'm thinking, I don't even, not that I don't want to get out of bed, but I physically can't. I don't have the strength to get out of bed. I don't have the strength to just get on with a normal day because, you know, you're constantly in pain. You're constantly battling your own mood swings, your own mind at times. So trying to do that whilst living a normal life of, I'm loving my life away, this is great. Yeah, of course I was, but I would still be dreading the build up and knowing what was going to come. And that was every single month, which again, just no way to live, you know? So
No,
it was the
definitely.
first time I realised it was probably a problem. And I think it was because I was away from the like original support system I had. Like it was suddenly friends and family that I'd made over there, which I love to look pieces and were so helpful. But it still wasn't used to what, you know, I was used to on like a daily basis. It made you feel, it does make you feel quite like alone because you do genuinely feel a little, and I hate again using this word, but you do feel like you are going crazy, like you're going mental.
Yeah.
Because you're told, can you suck it up, please? Well, actually, no, I can't. And that's why I came to you for help again, because I can't suck this up. There's something not right.
At the end of the day, it's a health, it's an illness at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Of course, and
Exactly.
it's quite similar to the situation in a previous episode with Sophia. She touched on she was living in Australia at the time, of course, and she was suffering, like, of course, with a mental illness at the time, and you were in America, the city that never sleeps. But of course, I know you would have probably just felt like sleeping all the time, just because you were just struggling in regards to that.
Literally, you like do sometimes think like I should be loving every single minute of this because it's what I've always wanted. But then your like anxiety starts talking to you and you're going, but do you really deserve this? And then you're at the other hand, you've got your PMDD going, no, you don't. And this is why you're feeling like crap. So you're constantly battling, you know, what's going on in your head and what's happening outside.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't think it, but when I'm like telling you all the stuff that, you know, these are signs and that these are symptoms, it is honest. It's a form of like you are technically bipolar. You know, it's not something that I would very here you go. But because of the like condition I've been diagnosed with, if they were to look at me on like a spectrum, that is it. You know, so I don't like the, you know, impressions or the pictures that some people have of someone that is going through stuff like this, because again, it's so easy to go, it's just a woman who's having a shitty time, we'll put it down to this, we'll put it down to that. Dive a little bit deeper and you might actually be a wee bit surprised at
No, definitely. And I think it's just the passive comments, oh, it must be their time of the month. I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes it can be quite funny in a jokey way, but I think sometimes you don't know if you're saying that to a person, maybe that's, you don't really know, it could have a detrimental.
Like I do remember actually one of my really good friends at the time when I was living away made a joke kind of like that. At one point he was like, "Oh Erin, can you shut up, it's just your time of the month." And I just burst out crying. I was like, whoa, like, you know, and that isn't like me. I usually would take any jokes in a jokey way, but that felt personal because then I started to like realise, oh crap, are all these signs and like symptoms that I'm trying so hard to like hide and conceal and live with, are they obvious?
Yeah.
And that makes you feel a wee bit paranoid. And don't get me wrong, and he's never felt more worse in his life, I don't think, but it's the little passing comments like that. You could be saying something to like someone that's thinking, I must just be nuts then. Yeah, like it must just be this.
Definitely, and I'm sure the person never meant anything by it at all.
Well, he absolutely didn't. Yeah, absolutely didn't.
But of course, but in a way, you've got to think that's saying think before we speak, which is true, because that's saying that quote, think before we speak, that's related around mental illness, because we don't know what we say and do, the impact it has on people. And that's also, that had an impact on you. I mean, was it a while that affected you, that passive comment, or was it just?
I'd say it was a few days worth, but then I was very conscious of, you know, how I was acting around him after that, which you shouldn't be, because that's a like friend. But it did get to a point where we just had to sit down and talk about it, and I explained that it was a kind of crappy thing to say, and as much as I know that he meant it's a joke, etc., but again, that was the mental illness in me, was thinking, oh, he's saying this to come out and hurt you, but then like another part of me was thinking it's a friend and they wouldn't do that. So I just feel like there's more knowledge needs to be built around what is going on, and that you can't just, a woman can have a bad day, of course they can, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's because it's their time of the month or they're being a woman and they're like hormonal. Do you know, like these things are going missed because people don't want to go and ask questions out of fear of being told you're overreacting, it's just your time of the month. No, for certain people it's not, it's a way of life.
No, definitely, and that's all with me here. That's why I will put that link in my bio, because it could, if it helps one person, great, but we don't want this to just help one person. We want it to help as many people as we possibly can. But since then, how have you like recovered since that? Of course, since it started at the age of 15, like, do you feel as if it's improved a lot, or do you feel as if there's still times where you're like, but you panic a bit, you feel as if, but do you know how to deal with it going forward?
Yeah. There's still certain times where when I do start to feel myself getting a bit overwhelmed, I'm thinking, oh God, and then the like physical signs of the like panic attacks start before I actually realise I'm panicking. But in a way, I'm quite happy that does happen, because then I can recognise these things, take a minute, be like, do you know what? And it might sound a wee bit counterproductive, but I actually do think of the worst possible thing happening and then talk myself down from that. It's like, that won't happen, and it won't happen because, you know, like take a recent like example, I've got an exam to sit in January. And I kept thinking, what happens if I fail this and I completely have wasted again another career path? All the people that told me I should be sticking with law were right, blah, blah, blah. It's like, right, worst case, I fail an exam. But then you talk yourself down from that of, even if it does happen, you're still going to live. You're still going to wake up the next morning. You're not a failure because you've done one thing wrong.
No, exactly.
On the other hand, you're waking up and thinking, okay, so if that's the absolute worst thing that can happen, and you talk yourself down from, but it won't happen because I'm preparing for it now. I'm ready. I'm recognising the signs and symptoms I've got, and I now know how to deal with them. Even if, I mean, you've seen where I live, even if I'm lucky enough to be able to go a nice walk in Hampstead Heath, you know, if I ever feel myself getting like overwhelmed, it's remove yourself from the situation. Tell people. I'm still quite bad at not telling people. And like, if I'm having a bit of a shitty day, I'll be talking to my flatmates and it'll be obvious I'm having a shitty day, but I won't come out and say it. So that's something that I still struggle to say, you know, like, actually the reason that I'm still in my pajamas at 4 o'clock is because I'm having a crap day. Like, I don't have the strength to get up and get changed and do anything because I just want to stay in bed all day. You know, so that's still something that I do kind of struggle with. And I think it's because in my head, I need to be the best at everything. So I can't have the time to admit to someone, actually, I'm having a bit of a shitty day, which is why I'm needing help. And that's something I'm trying to get away from. But I definitely am better now at recognising, like, when I need a bit of a break and I do need to be kinder on myself, I'm making a conscious effort to do exactly that. Because if you're not being kind and if you're not giving yourself time to catch up, or even just to, take a minute, things are just going to get worse. So you take time out and you look at it and you do what you need to do at the time.
Yep, you take it a day as it comes, is that old cliche saying, but it's true.
Yeah.
And so, as I say, thanks very much today just for sharing everything as best as you possibly can. You done well. So, as I say, folks, anything that Erin shared today, if you want to even get in touch with Erin in regards to it, if you're suffering the same thing, or I can, of course, put you into contact with Erin if you want to contact the page. But just what we spoke about today as well, I will put the links in the bio, just how you deal with PMD as best as you possibly can, and just see the support hopefully I can give you going forward, and will make your life a lot happier and healthier. But thanks very much for coming on there.
No, you're very welcome. And if anyone does want to get in touch, do just please shout.
Yeah, thanks very much. And well, troops, that was episode 6. That was the first episode back in a wee while then. I hope it was beneficial for yourselves, and I hope you have a great Saturday night, and this episode will be out later on this evening. So thanks very much, folks, and thanks very much again, Erin.
You're very welcome. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Thank
See you
you.
soon. Bye.